We'll call the Monday, February 20th, 2023 meeting to order. Welcome to everyone that came out on this President's Day. So happy to have you here. At this time, I would ask Commissioner Bill Lawhon for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner?
Thank you. If you would bow with me, if you would desire to do so. Father, we do come to you with thankful hearts, thankful for the county that we live in. Thank you for the people that work in this county and work hard for the citizens of this county. We just ask that as we have a meeting tonight, that we make decisions that are pleasing to you and that will be good for the citizens of Stanley County. Just protect those that are protecting us. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. If you join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, I would request the approval or adjustments to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I would ask that we remove item number 3 from the agenda for further study, and the rest remaining would move up from item number 4 would be item number 3 and 5, 6, and so forth.
All right, thank you, sir. I have a motion to pull item number 3. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Hatley, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Public comment. This time I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folks that had signed up. And our first one is Renee Van Horn. Ms. Van Horn. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is, can you hear me? Good evening. My name is Renee Van Horn, and I am a resident of Stanley County. But tonight I come to you as the Executive Director of the Stanley County Arts Council. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you this evening regarding an issue that is very concerning to many in our community. Since 1974, the Arts Council has been encouraging and promoting the arts of Stanley County. It is our responsibility to respect and honor the artists and their art. Therefore, we are requesting that the Stanley County Commissioners slow down the process and explore all possibilities before destroying the public art at the Stanley County Library. First, what is public art? Public art is art in any media whose form, function, and meaning are created for the general public through a public process. It is a specific art genre with its own professional and critical discourse. Public art is visually and physically accessible to the public. It is installed in public space in both outdoor and indoor settings. Public art seeks to embody public or universal concepts rather than commercial, partisan, or personal concepts or interests. Notably, public art is also the direct or indirect product of a public process of creation, procurement, and maintenance. According to the Association for Public Art is a reflection of how we see the world, the artist's response to our time and place combined with our own sense of who we are. In a diverse society, all art cannot appeal to all people, nor should it be expected to do so. Art attracts attention. That is what it's supposed to do. Is it any wonder then that public art causes controversy? Varied popular opinion is inevitable, and it is a healthy sign that the public environment is acknowledged rather than ignored. Public art is part of our public history, part of our evolving culture, and a collective memory. It reflects and reveals our society and adds meaning to our cities. As artists respond to our times, they reflect their inner vision to the outside world, and they create a chronicle of our public experience. The public art at the lower level of the main branch of the Stanley County Library was commissioned at the same time as the design and construction of the library. It is designed to be an integral and an extension of the library, not a standalone piece of art. Architectural firm William Associates of Matthews hired Mr. Byerline to design and integrate a piece of public art as the extension of the library. At the time, Mr. Byerline was a faculty member of the School of Design at North Carolina State University, where he continued to teach until his retirement in 1986. Byerline studied painting at Bradley University, received his master's degree in fine arts from the University of North Carolina in 1963. In the mid-1960s, the artist was represented by the Andre Emmerich Gallery in New York City and attracted the attention of the country's leading art critics. In 1967, he was awarded a prestigious Guggenheim Fellowship. He showed widely during his lifetime, including 2 major retrospectives at the North Carolina Museum of Art and the City Museum of Contemporary Art in Raleigh, North Carolina, and group exhibitions at the Smithsonian Institution, Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, Butler Institute of American Art, Walker Art Center, Dayton Art Institute, and Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Byerline's works are held in the collections of the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden, Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, North Carolina Museum of Art, and Duke University Museum of Art, among others. This art was designed by an extremely talented, well-respected artist. It reflects our history, and it matches the architecture of 1971. According to an interview for the Stanley News and Press with Mr. Byerline during the construction of the library art in 1971, Mr. Byerline stated the following: "They are unified with the building and conform to its scale, and in no sense do they dominate it. Since the library is the general educational and cultural center of the community, we wanted your library to have the extra advantage of art objects around so the patron can have this experience and perhaps learn from it. There were other considerations. They will be lighted at night to add the attractiveness of the library. They are economical since they are formed with concrete. They are not fragile. They are functional from the standpoint of use as well. You can sit on them. Children can climb on them. A teenager might recline on one of them to read his book. They can withstand this type of relationship." He wanted this sculpture to be an extension of the library activities. The reasons stated for demolishing the art were because it attracts the homeless population and drug use. Removing the public art will not solve homelessness or drug problems. Those are societal problems and are not easily or quickly fixed as indicated. If the intent is just to remove these issues from the library grounds, let's have a conversation and explore ideas, such as improved lighting, including the original lighting that Mr. Byerline had installed in the original sculptures, surveillance cameras, and other ideas generated by brainstorming solutions with community partners. After we have exhausted all possibilities of keeping the art, and if it is still deemed necessary to remove the public art, let's take the time and effort to relocate them, then demolish them. If there is not another location in Stanley County, then let's contact Mr. Byerline's estate. Let's contact North Carolina State University School of Design, see if they would like to place them on their campus in honor of Mr. Byerline. Let's contact the North Carolina Museum of Art for placement in their sculpture garden. Let's contact other communities that embrace public art before we rush to demolish a piece of art that can never be created again. Also, before going any further, has the original contract between the artist, Mr. Byerline, and the architectural firm Williams Associates, the County of Stanley, and the Library Board been reviewed? And can we legally demolish it? Public art in Stanley County is extremely rare. Therefore, no matter how this issue is resolved, I encourage each commissioner to adopt a resolution that for any public art removed, 2D or 3D, that another public art is fully funded to replace it within the county. Lastly, I encourage you all to read about George Byerline, especially an article in Indie Week remembering George Byerline, written shortly after his death in 2002, or check out his Facebook page. After researching the artist who created the library art, you may view the sculpture differently and realize that we have a gem in our county that we should be marketing instead of demolishing. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Van Horn. Our next speaker is Ms. Kathy Allman.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for your time this evening. My name is Kathy Almond, and I reside in the Valley Drive community, which is also the greater Albemarle community. I've been involved and worked here in Stanley County and Albemarle, the surrounding area, this region for 30-plus years. Currently, I serve as the treasurer for the Stanley County Arts Guild, and that's the role I'm here to speak on behalf of this evening. The purpose of the Stanley Arts Guild is to develop and promote educational activities in the visual arts of Stanley County, all within the scope of the 501c3 Internal Revenue Code. Stanley Arts Guild is the county's leading visual arts organization, which is celebrating our 60th anniversary this year here in Stanley County. The Stanley County Library, with its main branch located in the county seat of Albemarle, provides educational opportunities every day. Inside the Stanley County Library is a vast collection of literary arts. Outside the Stanley County Library is a 3D sculpture, a collection of visual arts. What an excellent example of collaboration and celebration of arts for our community. Stanley Arts Guild seeks to ask you, the Stanley County Commissioners, to further investigate opportunities to save this artwork by Mr. Byerline, preferably in its current location at the Stanley County Library. Destruction and/or relocation of Mr. Byerline's work will not address the societal issues that have been mentioned of homelessness and drug addiction. Drug activity occurs in many locations, both public and private. Have conversations taken place yet with law enforcement, the Sheriff's Department, and the local police department? Are there possibilities to add safety and security measures, such as lighting, surveillance cameras, some type of gating? The site could possibly use that to improve safety measures. Art evokes emotion. Art evokes controversy and contemplation. And for these many and other reasons, art should be celebrated every day and in every way. At a time when Stanley County is seeing unprecedented growth, its prosperity, and an ever-changing landscape of opportunities, should we not work more diligently to preserve, protect, and promote our resources and our assets than to demolish, destruct, and destroy them? Please consider further investigation prior to taking any action to remove this public art installation. And for that, I'll close and thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Allman. Our next speaker is Ms. Amy Phipps. Welcome.
Thank you. In Cause Unknown, the epidemic of sudden deaths in 2021 and 22, former BlackRock fund manager Edward Dowd and his team of PhD-level analysts report an alarming trend among children. While excess deaths for children under 14 decreased during 2020 due to their lack of vulnerability to COVID and lockdowns that reduced the opportunity for accidents, excess deaths in this age group has been increasing beyond pre-COVID levels ever since the introduction of the COVID vaccine to children. Regarding this trend, Dowd writes, the sad trend is associated with the vaccination, especially for children. Despite the mounting evidence of the danger of injury and death from the COVID vaccine, on February 9th, the CDC officially added COVID vaccines to the recommended childhood immunization schedule. Our health department's General Health Clinic webpage detailing the immunizations offered already reflects this change. The NCCPH currently has not mandated this product as a requirement for school children, and North Carolina provides both medical and religious exemptions. But how many parents know this? The Stanley County Commissioners webpage states your vision is to cultivate and sustain a community where children and adults learn, family and businesses thrive, and our residents are healthy and safe. Therefore, I ask you to investigate the following. Does our health department receive any financial incentive from a private or government entity based on the number of adults and/or children vaccinated, both with traditional vaccines and with the COVID vaccine? To date, how many children in Stanley County have received the COVID vaccine by the health department directly or through a clinic or service promoted by the health department? Is the health department providing any follow-up on these children to screen for complications? Then I ask you to take action on the following. Direct the health department staff to read an informed consent statement detailing that although the COVID vaccine is currently recommended by the CDC in the immunization schedule, it is not required for school admittance in North Carolina. Additionally, they must provide full informed consent on the dangers of the COVID vaccine. Parents would need to sign the form stating the informed consent statement had been read and that they understand it. Direct Stanley County Schools to provide the same information about informed consent above to each current student and each future student upon enrollment. Pass a resolution in support of House Bill 98, the Medical Freedom Act, which among other things prohibits the Commission on Public Health and public schools from requiring a student to provide proof of vaccination against COVID-19 or to submit to a COVID-19 vaccination or series of COVID vaccinations for any purpose. This bill is currently sitting in the Health Committee where Representative Wayne Sasser serves as a chair. I ask you for bold and decisive action to lead, support, and advocate for the lives and the health of the future and present generations of Stanley County. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker, and I'm sorry, I can't read the last name, is Mary Ann, is it Gant?
Yeah, I just want to withdraw from speaking.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker is Ms. Kelly Hart. Ms. Hart.
Good evening. I am here for the same reason I've been here several times lately. I never thought I would be. I realize that y'all are all aware that the land use plan has been approved late last year. At this time, to my knowledge, steps that need to take place now to put it into action have not been taken. I know that everybody's busy and there's a lot going on, but what I would like to ask is that you will all get behind and push this plan into action. Not for my sake, because the area that I live in has already fallen victim to the old land use plan and exceptions that were made to the old land use plan. I ask that you don't allow that to happen to the new land use plan, not for my sake, but for the sake of Stanley County. One more request is that you uphold the plan as it was approved by y'all and the planning board and not allow it to be whittled down to where it is not effective in the areas that it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. That's the last one that I have. Are there anyone else here that would like to speak before us tonight? Okay, thank you very much. Hearing none, our next item is a department head presentation, IT, and our presenter is Mr. Chad Coble. Mr. Coble.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to come to you tonight, share with you guys some things that are happening in the IT department. I think when most people think of the IT department, they think of, well, hey, you're the guy that works on the computers. And yeah, that's true. But I think our primary role in the IT department is to ensure that everyone else can do their job as efficiently as possible. If you think about it these days, right or wrong, technology underpins almost every single thing we do. Every service this county offers to its citizens, every service that's offered internally to the departments, they are all underpinned by technology. And when it works, it's awesome, right? I think another challenge for at least local government information technology offices are the diversity of industry or fields that we deal with. If you are an IT shop, let's say, at a hospital, you get to focus on medical industry or hospital-focused IT, right? The compliances that you have to meet, HIPAA, things like that, are somewhat narrow. But in a local government, more particularly counties, unlike municipalities, we have a very diverse set of circumstances. For example, we have a health department, so we have a medical facility or a medical agency within our purview. We have a law enforcement, obviously. We have a sheriff's office, so we have those challenges as well. Libraries, we have a museum. So there are obviously very diverse sets of challenges that come along with that, and compliances. With CJIS, for example, the criminal justice information that is dictated and stipulated upon us by the FBI for law enforcement is a whole set of rules that we have to follow that are unique to them. HIPAA, of course, for health, PCI for taking credit cards. So there are a lot of unique things that local government IT shops deal with that no one else really has to deal with. Just to give you some quick stats of some of the things for here in Stanley County, about 250 to 300 calls per week. We have about 550 plus full-time or employees, over 17 locations throughout the county that we all have to get service to. I have 80 plus servers that are in our data centers, 10 plus cloud-based systems, over 700 endpoints. That's computers, laptops, tablets, over 500 plus network devices that we oversee. That's switches, access points, cameras, phones, printers, over 40 plus terabytes, excuse me, of a data footprint, and over 100 distinct and unique applications and services that we have to offer on all of that infrastructure. Of course, that's IT stats. GIS department, I'm sure all you guys are familiar with, are under the IT department as well. We have an average of about 650 deeds per month that they deal with, that they have to key into the tax system. They have about 100 plus calls per week for service, and we have about 3,000 plus visitors to our public-facing GIS website, which has been a huge help to those dealing with phone calls and dealing with service, getting those services out to appraisals, surveyors, things like that. We did just replace that site. The vendor wasn't too fair to us. They come up at the last minute and says, oh, by the way, we're not going to offer the service anymore. So we had to quickly, excuse me, get something together. But I think they've done a good job with that. The new site is up and going, but there's still some tweaks we've got to do. But it actually is doing quite well. We actually have some compliments on it. Excuse me. Some of the projects that we are working on right now is we're in the middle of a phone migration. We're moving off of our old on-premise Mitel system up to a cloud-based Zoom phone system. We're about 90% complete with that. Obviously, you guys know the public safety software system that we got. We just acquired. That's excuse me. Project is starting up right now. I just ordered the equipment that is here, so that project is going to kick off very hard and heavy really soon. We had a lot of homegrown applications that we built in-house that we are having to replace just because they're old and antiquated. We need to get rid of those. They're still in use. They've served us well, but we've got to replace those. And replacing some old end-of-life servers that are going to go, or they'll go end-of-life in October of 2023 this year. So we're working on phasing those out and replacing those. Some of the challenges, obviously, security of our systems, data loss prevention. That's when, like, someone inadvertently shares a file that's got a social security number or something like that in it. And just the rate of change. Technology, as you know, just with phones and things change so quickly. You can imagine what that's like on an enterprise class environment and infrastructure. And do you guys have any questions? Apologize for my voice. Ever since I got COVID, if I do a lot of talking, I get a scratchy voice.
Any questions for Chad?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. I appreciate what you and your other associates do. We can't live without the computer, and we know you can work to try to keep us safe and our information safe.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate you and your associates.
Anyone else?
On ditto the words of Commissioner Lawhon. And people know I'm not a technical guy, so I admire and appreciate all that y'all do and have to keep up on because it's constantly changing.
Chad, I appreciate the new GIS system. I use it multiple times a day, and it's very user-friendly, and talked to Paul about some things I'd like to add to it that would help, but it's great. And I appreciate you guys getting that done.
Absolutely.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is Consolidated Health and Human Services Board appointments, and our presenter is Ms. Dolly Clayton. Welcome, Dolly.
Good evening. I hope all you are well today. I've been tasked with bringing forth to you a recommendation from the Consolidated Human Services Board. As you're aware in your packet, we did have a resignation from one of our consumer members, and a visitor to our board was a Mr. Kenneth Chambers. In fact, I believe he's here today. And he came and he visited with at our last meeting in February, and he comes to you as a recommendation from our board to become a member of the Consolidated Human Services Board, and I bring that recommendation to you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, request appointment for one vacancy, Consumer of Health Services member. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to request the appointment of one vacant Consumer of Human Services member, Kenneth Chambers, to serve the remainder of a 4-year term expiring 3/3/26.
All right.
I'll second it.
All right, we'll have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would just say that I had an opportunity to talk to communicate with all of the applicants for this position, and Mr. Chambers is an excellent choice, so I'm excited about him joining the board.
All right, any comments? More discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, our next item is budget amendment for engineering services agreement for the West Stanley wastewater treatment plant, 2.5 million gallons per day expansion. Our presenter, Mr. Dwayne Wingo. You got up here before I could even say your name.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners.
Yes, sir.
Staff has received a USDA-approved engineering services agreement for the Wooten Company to proceed with the design, permitting, and construction observation of the West Stanley wastewater treatment plant 2.5 million gallon per day expansion project. A capital account has previously been established to conduct the preliminary engineering report and the environmental impact study, both of which have been completed. In order to facilitate ongoing payments to Wooten to complete the work, staff is recommending 2 budget amendments to assign designated American Rescue Plan Act funds, or ARPA, to the established capital accounts for the expansion project. As part of the USDA financial application that has been submitted, $6.25 million towards the project is to be provided by Stanley County from other funding sources, reducing the USDA loan package to $26,647,000. The amount of funds requested to be transferred by a budget amendment 2023-83 and 2023-84 is $3 million. They include the following items: the Wooten ESA, including the design, construction observation, the purchase of land, additional land expenses such as surveying, appraisal, and closing, additional costs we incurred during the PER and environmental impact study for ADA compliance inspection and an endangered sunflower study, and a 3% contingency for any additional items that may pop up during the design process. The remaining available ARPA funds designated for the West Stanley project will be requested via a second budget amendment after the design is complete and the construction bid for the project has been received and awarded by the Stanley County Board of Commissioners. Staff is recommending approval of the budget amendment 2023-83 and 2023-84 and approval for the county manager to execute the engineering services agreement submitted by Wooten for the design, permitting, and construction observation of the West Stanley wastewater treatment plant expansion project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wingo. Any
Chair.
questions for, yes, sir. Mr. Moore?
Mr. Wood, on here, I've seen where there's a environmental study for endangered sunflower for $9,100.
That included that and the ADA study. During the PER process, Fish and Wildlife, they determine what requirements are necessary for the environmental study. And when something like a sunflower, we have to have a certain specialist that goes out that's able to identify this particular plant if it exists along the right-of-ways. It's primarily for force mains, not at the plant, but for the force main from McCoy down to the plant, then from the plant. The force main, we're going to be paralleling from the plant down to the Rocky River. So really, it's just they drive along the right-of-ways and see if these sunflowers are present, and then they make note of it. If they are present, we have to hire a specialist to dig them up and relocate them.
You don't know if they're there or not.
I don't think we found any.
I know if you do find them, you can't do anything.
Yeah, we have to hire a what they call a horticulturalist that is certified. He will come out, pick up those flowers and relocate them to a spot where they can live elsewhere.
I'm in my understanding, because I did some checking on this,
Okay.
if they find them, they can't be moved.
Well, that's been my experience that in the past, when I worked for another organization, we did find some primarily around the 74 bypass, and we did have to hire somebody to relocate them. It may have changed since then, but they can be relocated off that right-of-way, is what I've experienced in the past. I'll check into that if there's something, but we didn't find any on this job, so it may be a moot point.
Okay, well, that, and the land purchase agreement, that hadn't came through yet.
We can discuss that. I mean, we're on
Well,
ongoing.
I'm just asking
Yeah,
if-
we're on ongoing negotiations at
So we
this
haven't
point in
got
time, so
anything
no, sir.
finalized.
No, sir.
So before I could vote for this, I'd have to see that pulled from this, the land purchase thing pulled, because we don't know if we're gonna be able to use that land or not. If they find these sunflowers out there, we're gonna have to move.
I don't believe there's any sunflowers on the land.
But we have to have a study done, even though you.
The study's
haven't seen
completed on the sunflowers. Study's completed. We just have to, this was an overrun. We had a certain budget for the PER. This was an additional expense that occurred because of comments from Fish and Wildlife. And I'm just covering it now.
All right. Any more questions?
I kind of feel like Mike on the land part, though. I don't feel comfortable with that being in there. We hadn't secured land. I mean, it's kind of like writing a blank check if we hadn't already secured it and we're putting an amount in there.
Keep in mind, I mean, the thought process was we do need, whether, the amount of land we take is truncated back some, or whether we take what was been requested by staff, it's still going to have some land to build this facility. The concern I have right now is this ESA getting underway because of the time crunch it takes to get this plant designed. Right now, we're about 2 weeks behind from when this ESA should have been submitted, and even at 2 weeks behind, they complete their design, it's still going to take a year for the regulators to award us a MPDES permit to bid and start construction on this, which right now we're scheduled to start construction in January of 2025. Substantial completion will not be done until September of 2026. So the further we delay this ESA and underway, it's further just going to push the project completion date back.
Mr. Ringo, question about that. Okay, so what if this does go through and we vote yes, but the land purchase does not happen? What if the negotiations does not go through? Now we've approved something for a plot of land that we can't do anything for. So where are we on that?
We really don't need to, I would just recommend that the board not discuss any land purchases in open session. That's a closed session item to protect the negotiation process. So I would just recommend that the land, if there's concern about putting funding in here into this budget amendment for the land, I would just recommend taking that line item out and just adjusting this amount by 3 million, by that 460, and just approve that. We can always come back to you. I think he was just simply trying to save a step. Nobody was saying that you were going to purchase the land this evening. You're not approving that. You're just approving the funding to go into the budget for this capital project for that. If there's concern about that, just pull the $460,000 out of this budget amendment adjust the budget amendment by less 460. We'll just bring that budget amendment back to you at the time that we actually finalize the land purchase or acquisition, whatever that looks like.
Well, I personally like to have more time to look over it then, because there might be other things in there that we're just trying to save steps on, and I don't want to save steps if it's not the right thing to do.
The only things in there on this budget amendment are the engineering services agreement and the additional cost for working through the land negotiation process. There's contingency, and then the overrun on the PER that we've already done for the ADA compliance and the sunflower study. So there's nothing else in here other than the engineering services agreement, contingency, and the services, professional services we need in order to finalize any type of land acquisition, whatever that may look like. So there's really nothing else in here. We have to approve this engineering services agreement as soon as possible because we're waiting, the USDA is waiting on that to finalize our loan application and approve that process. So we're just continuing to move that process down the road if we don't.
Well, I guess my question is, if we approve it and we don't have anywhere to put it, what are we going to do with it?
What I'm saying is that we will have a place to put it. I mean, you know, this is a closed session item. I think maybe then we need to go back into closed session and have that conversation, because if you don't do, the previous board told our staff to move forward with the construction of that plant. Because if we don't enhance that plant, there will be no additional growth in the western part of the county. I mean, you won't have any commercial growth, no residential growth. I mean, you're basically saying we don't want to grow at all because there's no place to put sewer. So there won't be any more large restaurants, large commercial entities beyond the areas that already have that sewer capacity, like Meadow Creek or Riverstone. But any other additional land that would be purchased for any commercial activity, a large manufacturing plant that may go out there wouldn't be able to do it because there's no sewer capacity. So that was the reason why the board went forward with that. You know, we're still negotiating the land acquisition, but if the board decides not to do this project, then essentially you're saying that we're not going to grow. There's going to be no additional growth in the western part of the county. That's really, I mean, because we have to have the sewer capacity to grow. But I don't, what I would say is if you all have, if there's consternation now, whether or not you're going to do this project, we need to go into closed session to talk the land if that's your concern. So that's, Mr. Chairman, I just defer to you. I mean, if there is any doubt that we're going to do this project at all, we need to go back and we need to have a closed session discussion about that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Can we recess this meeting and go into a closed session?
We can.
Make the motion to do that.
You don't have to have a motion to
Okay.
recess.
Thank you.
I determined that we're in recess. We'll be right back. All right, Mr. Wingo. Any more questions for Mr. Wingo? All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion to remove the $436,000 from the amended budget.
Okay. So you're removing the 406 and the 30,000. Correct.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Second, Ms. Crump. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
He just made the motion, did we make the motion, the first motion, he just made the motion to take that?
Yeah, take it out. We'll have another motion about the budget.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. Now, the staff recommends the approval of Budget Amendment 2023-83, 2023-84, approval of the county manager to execute the engineering service agreement submitted by Wooten for the design, permitting, construction, observation for the West Stanley wastewater treatment plant 2.5 million gallon expansion project. What's the pleasure of the board? What? I'm sorry.
And you'll want to amend both of those budget amendments by that 436,000. So
Can we do that in this motion, or we need a separate one?
Yeah, I would think you could just amend, you could approve it with the amendment to those budget amendments of
Okay.
less 436,000.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, what's the pleasure? No, yours was take those two out. Now we need a motion to approve the agreement minus the 436. Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, sir. All right, our next item is a supplementary agreement for additional funds from the opioid settlement resolution. Our presenter is Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So recently, there was a new $21 billion settlement that CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Allergan, and Teva is being referred to as Wave 2 settlement. It's anticipated Stanley County will receive an additional almost 3.74 million over a 13-year period from these Wave 2 settlements to address and mitigate opioid misuse disorder. The combined project allocations now of both Wave 1, which was with the manufacturers and the distributors, and Wave 2 with the pharmacies is 8.4 million. In order to receive these Wave 2 settlements, Stanley County must sign on to each of these 5 new national pharmacy settlements. And there'll be a supplement to the MOA that we have with the North Carolina Department of Justice, which governs how the opioid settlement funds are used at the local level. And that supplement is being referred to as the SAAF. And the deadline to do that is April 18th. And so what we're asking this evening through this resolution is to authorize the county manager or county attorney to execute the required documents to sign the 5 new Wave 2 settlements so we can access that almost 3.74 million, and to execute the SAF, which is the supplemental agreement for additional funds from additional settlements of opioid litigation, SAAF, and that's the amendment to the MOA with the Department of Justice and the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for county manager? Andy, we don't know what our portion of that would be yet.
Yeah, 3.7. We believe that based on the data that's out there right now is that those 5, if we move forward with signing on to those 5 new settlements, that we would get almost 3.74 million over a 13-year period. So that coupled with the 4 point something we're scheduled to get is about 8.4 million.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Any questions? All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we approve the settlement.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Second. I heard it over here first. Trent. Commissioner Hatley. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, sir. All right, our next item is consent agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Shudo. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Crump. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, board comments, announcements, and committee reports. Commissioner King, I'll start with you this time, sir.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Appreciate all the guest speakers coming out, and really appreciate the information y'all provided. We just had the GOP Lincoln Day dinner this past weekend. It was very nice out at David Palmer's new site out on the Old Whitney Road. If you hadn't been there, check that out. I really encourage everybody to go check that place out. It's going to be real special out there. And just thank everybody for coming out. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Shudo.
3 quick sports shout outs. One, congratulations to Albemarle's Kayla Garrett. She set like 3 state indoor track records at the 1A, 2A state meet, and she's a phenomenal athlete, and she has Olympic aspirations. And basically, with her points, she could score up to 40 points in the meet, and they're saying she could do that, and that pretty much can almost get them to win Albemarle to go far in the state by just her performances. She's really good. Shout out to Chris Phillips. Chris Phillips from West Stanley. He's a key player in the new XFL football league. It was just in the paper there, so kudos to him. And to Leffler McManus. You know, it's very difficult to run a marathon, much less with your first marathon to have a goal of qualifying for the Boston Marathon. And she had to run 3 hours and 30 minutes to qualify for Boston, to run the Boston Marathon. This was her first marathon in Wilmington this weekend, and she ran it and came in 3rd overall for the women, like 16th overall, including the men, in a time of 3 hours and 18 minutes. So congratulations to her. And her last mile, she was running like 7:18, 7:30s per mile. Her last mile was like 7 minutes and 4 seconds. So she finished up very strong. And then real quick, thank you for the folks that came out to talk about the library and the art at the library. And that decision goes to the Historic Resource Commission. I believe that's the name of it in Albemarle. They're the ones that would make the decision. And and my thing is, if those things stay there, we need to do what we can to put lights on them like they were originally intended. And I'd like the idea about putting security cameras there and stuff like that to get a visual if there's a problem. And I do know one issue in that whole area is because it's kind of L-shaped. There's pretty much always going to be dirt and debris blowing into that corner. It's like those L-shaped balls. It's just going to happen with Mother Nature. But you know, we'll see what happens with the Resource Commission. But I would like to, you know, if they turn it down, for us to really put lights up there like it was intended to be.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Crump.
Yes, I would like to thank Ms. Van Horn and Ms. Allman as well for your comments and for asking us to slow down the process and to consider some things we had not yet considered. And that's what this process is for. It's really nice to hear from the public and to get public opinion. And, you know, while the side of the argument seemed very compelling, you know, that would lead us to say, you know, we need to maybe take them down. Maybe they've had their day. Maybe that's not the right answer, and maybe it is, but we definitely need to discuss better options. And so thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I will certainly slow down the process on my end. And not that it's up to me, but as we go forward with this, it's not going to be immediate, but these are good things for us to consider. So thank you again. And Ms. Phibbs, thank you so much for bringing that very valuable information. I was very upset to read that the CDC had added the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, to the children's schedule. And I very much am supportive of everything you asked, that we make sure that parents are fully aware of the risk involved, and that I will hope that we can move forward in unity to make sure that this is not something that they have to do to go to school here in Stanley County. I would stand against that all day long. So I will work with you on that, as well as I will back the House Bill 98 for medical freedom. So thank you for that. I would also just like to point attention to the fact that a large majority of our conservatives in the House just passed Medicaid expansion. And while some, I think people believe that that is going to, and I'm sure it's going to be a windfall of money, but we're at 25% right now of Medicaid in Stanley County. And with this expansion, will we be a third? Will we be now 33%, 35%? those are things we need to consider, because that's 10% more people or less people in the workforce, and we're already finding it hard to find people to work. So it was a disappointment for me, and I would encourage people that while they're still in negotiations, that they reach out to our leaders, Wayne Sasser and Carl Ford, and let them know how you feel. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Haddock. Commissioner Lawhon.
Want to give an update on the Stanley County Airport. We met 2 weeks ago tomorrow. I think the 14th would be the right date. Operations, 4,526 operations for the month of January, which consist of 2,103 landings, 2,235 takeoffs, 144 go-arounds. So pretty active month. Also, an update on the commercial air hangar out there. It's will be owned by a commercial company, local company, where they'll park their planes. They're paying for the construction, and it's in process, and they're on a land lease through the airport. Give you an update after we meet in the month of March, but airport's very busy. Again, I encourage all the citizens, if you ever have the opportunity to go out there and check out the airport, you need to, because it's a very big asset for Stanley County. Thank you.
Commissioner, how long will the Lift Academy be out there? Are they still there?
They're still there, and the Lift Academy is a company that teaches pilot training, and their students, I'm not sure how many are out there, but they'll be there probably through March, April. They're from up north. They can't fly up there because of the weather, but they can come south and fly, and they've been there teaching, I want to say 60 potential students from all over the U.S. Thank you. Good question.
Vice Chairman Barbie.
I want to thank the Arts Council and Ms. Van Horn. I appreciate your input, because I know you trust everything you've been telling me, so I thank you for that. Ms. Fizz brought up some good points. I've been learning quite a bit about these young athletes and students that have had COVID shots and what's happening to them since then, so it's very concerning. And I also want to thank Ms. Hart for bringing up the point about the land use program, and I promise you we're going to try and get that implemented pretty good, and some wording, I've been looking over, there's some wording changes that I'd like to see put back like they're supposed to be, so we'll definitely look into it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, our next meeting is March the 6th. Again, thank everyone for coming out, and at this time I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor say aye.